It's hard to believe we're already this far into the semester. I mean, it's kind of amazing. And if you look back at what you've accomplished from the beginning of the class until now, I think it's pretty good. I mean, you started during the very first week being thrown into the deep end with respect to technology, creating a website for yourself and a multimedia file embedded in that site that communicated some information about you, including some cultural influences that kind of define who you are as a person right now. You were also asked to describe your current and future teaching aspirations, including what you think is worth your current or future students learning. And that was learning things that were academic in nature, as well as skills that were very important but not necessarily academic in nature. And you use technology to help you access and consider what is worth learning by examining a number of resources and reflecting on them that way. So you did all of that in the first week of class, and then you were asked to investigate ways in which technology might be used to help define a community or help build community. And you investigated some different tools that might help establish a sense of community between you and your students and the parents. And again, we used a few small strategies for this class, primarily the About Me file that presented some personal information about yourself, thereby establishing your kind of identity in the class that I can learn more about, and also that other students can learn more about. That's about as far as community building in a class like this is useful. There were times when I had group projects and lots of discussion board things, and one thing that I learned after collecting a lot of data from my students is that students in online classes who are upper division undergrads as well as graduate students definitely tend to favor limited interaction, compulsory interaction with other students, and definitely prefer to do things on their own independent timeline. And that I learned. I learned the hard way, but that's the way it is, and I accommodate that. I think we have, for me anyway, just enough community building for this class. So you did all of that, and now you're entering into another very important way in which technology can be used to support the practice of teachers, and that are the many, many different ways that technology can support effective instructional experiences. And this is by far the largest sort of section of the class, and definitely the most important. And you are going to start in weeks 5 and 6. You're going to begin your investigations about how technology can be useful for instructional purposes by looking at ways in which you might use technology to define learning contexts that provide meaning and purpose to your students learning some of those worthwhile academic and non-academic skills. And one of the things that I asked you to do in the last cycle of projects was learn more about how technology might impact instruction. What is good instruction? How do you write good objectives? What are the various components of an effective learning experience? And what role does context play in all of that? And that's what this next set of learning experiences is designed to focus on. So I'm going to be referencing some of the information in the notes that you started getting more acquainted with a few weeks ago, and I'm going to emphasize some specific elements regarding good instruction and good instructional design. And speaking of which, I am very confident that all of you have learned at some point in your education, higher education I should say, you've all had to learn some model of good instructional design. At Radford University, we have a common lesson plan format that many classes use and that the field experience uses for many different types of teachers. And that is an example of an instructional design experience, is completing one of those lesson plans. And I have to say that when I was learning to be a teacher way back when, I had to learn a lesson planning model that was very, very complex. In fact, and I was learning to be a science teacher. And as a matter of fact, the lesson planning model that I had to learn when I created my very first lesson, which was the equivalent of 1 or maybe 2 days of instruction, I think my lesson plan using the model that I was taught was about like 7 pages long. And although I think it was a good learning experience that I was defining, even though I hadn't implemented it yet, I did realize really early on that there was no way I was going to be able to create lesson plans that were that detailed, that intricate, for every day or two of my practice as a teacher. Just no way. What I didn't realize, and what wasn't made clear to me, was that experience was kind of a heuristic learning experience. I go through these detailed planning, instructional planning, so that I could better understand what are the essential elements that need to be in a good lesson plan. Now, as I mentioned, you might have learned the Radford way, but there are other models too that you might have learned about, and models that I was exposed to when I was a young teacher. Some of those models, they're presented in a document that I have that I'm going to reference in this in the next project. Robert Gagne had a very influential instructional planning model that he created in the 80s based on he was an educational psychologist. It's based on a lot of really good research about characteristics that can influence and affect learning. Madeline Hunter was at about that same time, and that was a model of instructional planning that I actually was asked to use in the school district that I first taught at. Marzano is a very popular author when it comes to lots of different aspects of teaching, and Marzano has an instructional planning model. Cunningham has a model, Bybee, Merrill. These are all instructional design kind of thinkers and researchers who present models that if you adhere to them, they maximize the effectiveness of the learning experience. Now, I will say this, that no matter what model that you were taught, they all have many, many, many things in common. They all have a beginning, a middle, and an end to the experience. And many aspects in the middle are common. And that's one thing that this, or in the beginning or the middle or the end. And that's one thing that this document does, is it kind of compares, well, what are the different strategies in the beginning of a learning experience that can contribute to the effectiveness of the experience. And again, lots of those things are very common across models. But there are some things that are missing, and these are things that I've learned more about as I've gotten more experience and done more reading and done more research in the area of instructional planning. And I include what those areas are also in the chart. And one of the biggest areas that is absolutely missing from nearly all of those models is the area that I'm asking you to investigate up front, and that is contexts. Very few instructional planning models address the steps involved in defining how are you going to provide meaning and purpose to the skills that you want your students to learn. What's the overall context? And so in the notes, I provide a model of different types of contexts. And in this project, I'm going to ask you to identify which of the types of contexts, might be one or might be more than one, which types might you sort of use to define an experience that can be effective for your students by providing meaning to them. And to help you understand that better, I'm going to talk about one type of context that absolutely changed my teaching as a science teacher, and I think it will. It really demonstrates how number one, context isn't really addressed often by teachers, but also how powerful it can be. Now, I'm going to tell you about a context that is nearly identical to some of the ones that I first learned about and used as a biology teacher in the mid-1980s. And at that time, there were a set of kind of curricular materials that were developed called Project Learning Tree. And these were kind of lesson experiences that were situated within real environmental education experiences, and it was really a focus on the environment and the impact of human decisions on the environment, and also learning more about biology through the context of the environment and environmentalism. Well, but I'm not going to talk about that because I want to talk about a project that is still very popular. Well, it's not popular, but it still exists today in Virginia. And again, it's very similar to the kinds of contexts and experiences that I started using as a teacher that absolutely transformed my practice way back when. And this is called Virginia Save Our Streams. And I'm going to talk about it with you by giving you a quick tour of the website now, and talking about it when I give you that tour. So I'm going to present the basic tour now, and then I'm going to come back and get you started for this week. So here I am at the Virginia Save Our Streams website. The address is vasos.org. And the homepage provides some basic information about the project, and some of the main places to go on the homepage are resources for becoming a monitor, finding a place to monitor a stream, the processes of collecting data scientifically and how to share your results, and then some more information about protecting your water. So in this project, anybody, but I'll say students are provided with the resources and the training to become official monitors of either macro invertebrates in a stream, or chemical qualities of the water that are collected in a scientific way and then uploaded to a database that provides data for the Department of Environmental Quality. Just a couple of the pages here. First of all, let me just say that if you want to become a monitor, there's a page for resources for that. So how to become a monitor, that's what you would want your students to do if you have a good stream nearby. And there are steps involved in getting certified, including field training. So you have to take a test online that provides a test over identifying macroinvertebrates and a little bit about water chemistry. And then if you want field training, you go to an organization. You can arrange for an organizational training that allows you to have a trainer come to your area at a time that is that works, you can have all the students in your class or classes go to this outdoor training and to become certified as actual monitors. Now, to become certified, again, you have to demonstrate that you can collect samples in a scientific way, and then also that you can collect the data in a scientific way. And again, some of the resources are official data sheets, places to enter and view the data. So here you have information about logging in, but you'd have to log in as an official monitor and upload your data once you log in. So that's an important aspect of this resource. Also for monitors, a manual for being a water quality monitor. And the manual includes a lot of really important information, including, so check this out, including information about what actually pollutes Virginia waterways and why, and information about what you do as a monitor, as an official monitor, what information you collect, and some other really important information about becoming a monitor. And then in addition to collecting and monitoring the macroinvertebrates that live in the water, and you get training in how to do that, how to collect that. If you're an older student, you could also get training in collecting water samples and doing tests on the samples regarding dissolved oxygen, pH, and temperatures, and other really important data that is associated with water quality. And so you have that information as well. Also, you have information about the microinvertebrates that you're going to be collecting samples of. These are the creatures that you will observe in a stream, and it is the case where the size and type of invertebrate populations in streams can tell you a lot about the quality of the water. And this is one of the most important data elements that are collected. And if you think about it, think about all the scientific skills that are measured in this activity. First of all, you have to be able to identify macroinvertebrates. So you go through all the training of that, and you have data sheets in which you have to record how many. You have very specific information about how to collect the data. You have to do it in a very uniform scientific way. You learn about the relationship between organisms and what causes them to thrive and the quality of the water. So you're learning about taking data points that allow you to make really smart inferences about something else. And so you're learning all about that and about the procedures of scientifically and uniformly collecting data. And they're very careful and clear about how to do that. So essentially, you're really learning and practicing a lot of skills that are associated with being a scientist. And if you think about it, think about how important that skill set is. So you want to talk about what's worth learning. Well, I'm sure a lot of you out there have probably taken biology classes where you had to learn a lot of information. But how many experiences did you have that taught you how to be a scientist, how to be a biologist, and how to apply biological knowledge to actually collecting data, uploading it, and then check this out. So they have resources about how to identify specific macroinvertebrates. So you have to learn about that. There's using dichotomous keys
to be able to use that. Very, very scientific.
So again, I cannot emphasize enough how involving students in an experience like Virginia Save Our Streams creates, first of all, results in data that's genuinely useful today and helpful today. And also, the students always have a meaning or a reason to learn the things that you're asking them to learn and practice the things that are of value. So, just amazing. So I'm going to ask you over the next 2 weeks to describe a context and create the pieces of a learning experience that use two specific types of technology that can be used to help define meaningful learning contexts. And one of them is artificial intelligence. And I've already had you investigate a little bit about AI and its role in education. And and if you want to further investigate how you might use AI or AI tools to help create a learning experience that's meaningful and purposeful, you can do that. But you can also choose a different tool that you can use either with AI or just separate and only address it. And this is a tool that some of you may have used called Google Earth. And I just have to say, I am a huge fan of Google Earth, and I think that it can be used in a number of ways, regardless of what subject area you teach. And I'll just give you one quick example of this. It was popular probably 10 years ago when Google Earth kind of first came out for teacher use and educational use. And there were a group of teachers who created this thing called Google Lit Trips, that is literature trips. And it was, in a way, it was kind of a three-dimensional book report kind of project that they got the students involved in. And basically, it was like this. It was like, okay, you take a story, and almost all stories exist within a time frame and within a place frame. That is, they take place somewhere and over a certain period of time. And sometimes those places represent places on planet Earth, and sometimes they represent other places. But for Google Lit Trips, the purpose was to use Google Earth to map out where some of the important scenes took place in the story if it took place on Earth. And by the way, you can also use Google Earth to go to the moon and also to go to Mars. So those are two features as well. So it could be a Martian story or a moon story. But at the time, before those existed in Google Earth, these projects involved looking at some important scenes in a book, mapping them to locations on Earth, organizing a tour in Google Earth that was temporally organized. That is, it followed the timeline of the book, where the character or characters were, and then summarized something like, why was this important, or what aspects of this place influenced what happened, or how the main character felt, or something like that. So it was a very cool way as an English teacher or a literature teacher or a language arts teacher to use a tool like Google Earth to help students organize a piece of storytelling that reflected their processing of an important book that they were asked to read. So I thought that was such a cool, creative way to use Google Earth. So that would certainly be a very cool context, I think, for this project. So I'm going to ask you to look to create and define a meaningful learning context using AI and or Google Earth. And I also provide some links to some resources like the resources at Edutopia or the resources at a website called PBWorks, which is a project-based learning kind of repository. And I'm going to ask you to reflect on how some of those resources might help you in this project. So you're going to do that, and then I'm having you reflect on a couple of important readings, or at least one important reading that has to do with learning contexts. And so hopefully by the end of the next couple of weeks, if nothing else, you will recognize the importance as a teacher of identifying in what ways can I make what I'm expecting my students to learn have meaning or purpose. And like I said, it transformed my teaching, and hopefully it will influence you enough for you to start practicing that way, and it will influence your teaching as well. So good luck, and I hope you enjoy it.